When it's Spence in the crib, y'all, preach it like it's hot. That song, Drop It Like It's Hot, it's just one of hundreds of songs either written or produced by Pharrell Williams. Now, look, no matter what genre of music you prefer or listen to, he has worked in that genre and he's probably created this song, whether you knew it or not, that you like or that you listen to. Now, today's watch list feature is a documentary. We've never done a documentary before. And even though we tell stories and connect them to real life, today we're connecting real life to real life. And being the creative genius that he is, Pharrell wanted to tell his story through Legos. So I want to just remind you of our disclaimer, okay? Because before you go and add this movie piece by piece to the list of Lego movies that you and your kids watch, please remember, this is the story of his life and his journey through the music business. Now, since it's Lego, they did their best to keep this as PG as possible, including being in the studio with people like Snoop, which probably involved working under a cloud of smoke. But Pharrell's story, here's why we're talking about it today. His story is just about a dream. Just a kid from Virginia who had a dream to make it in the music business. And I gotta tell you, I love stories like this. I love sermons like this because I love dreams. And I hope that it shows every time Patrick or myself or your campus pastors, Nelson or your team, whenever we're talking about something that's close to our heart, I hope it shows, and you're going to see it on me today because I absolutely love dreams. I love helping people discover and find what their dream is. I love helping people maybe change or find another one. But dreams, man, they just really tug on my heart. Now, look, even though we're going to talk about it a little bit, I'm not talking about the kind of dreams that you have in your sleep. You know, that one dream where you're running from something, and because you're desperately trying to get away, somehow you unlock some super leaping power. Please tell me I'm not the only one. I didn't only have that dream as a kid. I have it still today. I'm not talking about that kind of dream. I'm talking about the kind of dreams that we have with our eyes wide open. I'm talking about the kind of dream that you have whenever you look at your life, when you look in the mirror, when you think about who you are, and you see who maybe you want to be, and you wonder where life is going to take you, or you dream about what you could do with the person that you become. And when you think about it, it gives you this sense of existence, why you exist, and purpose. I'm talking about the kind of dream that is a green light at the intersection of your faith, your fears, your frustration, and your future. And when the light turns green, it not only tells you to go, it tells you to go towards it. I'm talking about dreams. I love that we are the kind of church who has launched a dream center. Shout out to our dream center and anyone who has ever helped to be a part of it. Right now, it's a small program, but we got big dreams for it. We got big dreams for it to not only be a program, but an actual place where people come and they can get help to find and discover what their dream is and make it happen. And not only just for themselves, but how it can change and affect their world, like the person we're going to talk about today. There was a moment in Israelite history where their life, their existence, their continuation as a nation hinged on the dream of a young man named Joseph. And so we're going to look at his story at the same time that we look at Pharrell's journey through his dream. Let's start off and take a look in Genesis chapter 37, verse 9. This is Joseph, and he basically has the same dream, but he has two different versions of it. And in this one, we see he says, Then he had another dream, and he told his brothers, "Listen," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down to me." This was a dream that was imagery of Joseph being a leader. He had a dream to be a leader. And even though this dream came to him in his sleep, God gifted him with the ability to interpret dreams. So when he awakened, he knew that he needed to take this dream from just a dream into destiny. Now, I'm pretty sure that when Joseph saw this imagery, when he saw the sun and the moon and the stars. I'm pretty sure that they weren't made up of tiny little interlocking blocks. But when I read this story and when I watched Pharrell's story piece by piece, I couldn't help but see Joseph's scene in his head when I saw Pharrell's story. See, Pharrell's grandmother, like so many other grandmothers, Pharrell's grandmother was the voice of God in his life. She would take him to church. She would speak into his life and encourage him to dream big, and aspire to do big things with his life. And when we watch this first clip of Piece by Piece, I think you'll see what I saw. Let's take a look. It was from that point on that Pharrell's grandmother encouraged him to try music. See, Pharrell, he had got to experience what it was like for his family to have his back, to believe in his dream and encourage him, but it wasn't the same for Joseph. When Joseph had his dream, he tells his family, chapter 37, verse 10, look at what happens. He says, when he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him. And he said, what is this dream you had? I mean, will your mother and I and your brothers actually bow down to the ground before you? His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. So this last sentence, his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. His father kept the matter in mind because Joseph was his father's favorite out of all of his children. Now, Joseph and all of his brothers, no judgment, but they were from 4 different baby mamas. Now, they were his dad's wives, but this is what created the issue. This is why there was so much jealousy, because all of them knew that Joseph was their dad's favorite. He even showed him by giving him special gifts, and they hated him. And now that he's got this dream where maybe he's going to be better than them, they hated him all the more, to the point where they even wanted to kill him. And they have their opportunity. And the only reason that they don't kill him is because they know that he's worth more to them alive than dead. And so right on time, a caravan comes by when Joseph comes to check on his brothers working a distance away. And a caravan comes by. They make up a lie to their father that a beast has killed him, but they sell him into slavery. And off Joseph goes to Egypt. Seabird Campus, even for a family that doesn't exist like in this world anymore, I don't want to be judgmental, but when I look at the stuff that this family had going on, we got blended family struggles, sibling rivalry, if you want to call it that, jealousy and tension, a plot to murder with a resolve to sell into human trafficking instead. Am I wrong to say that this family is a little dysfunctional? I mean, just a few pieces short of a Lego set. I'm not crazy. And I hope that you see this the same way, not so I cannot feel crazy, but I hope that you see it the same way, because here's what I know. When I started talking about dreams right away, some of you checked out because you feel like this is not for you. Now, you may have 101 reasons, age, where you live, but some of us actually believe that we are not allowed to dream. No, we don't think that's for us. We don't think that we're qualified because of where we've been, what we've been through, where we come from, or the drama that raised us. We feel like we're not allowed to be somebody who could dream about going back to school or starting a business or serving in a church or raising a family or even just becoming a better person. Do you know why God gives us this full story? Do you know why he shows us Joseph's backstory and his family drama before he shows us his dream come true? Because he wants you and I to know that no matter what, in God's eyes, dysfunctional doesn't mean disqualified. Not at all. God will take a starting line strife and turn it into a finish line finale. If you're somebody who believes that you don't have any right to dream, you're denying yourself. You are denying yourself one of God's greatest blessings, because do you know where dreams come from? They don't just only cook up in our head. No, dreams come from God. They come from God. And we see it in this illustration. This is why Even though I'm talking about the dreams we see with our eyes wide open and when we envision our life, Joseph's dream did have to come to him while he was asleep. Because Joseph knew he was the little brother. He couldn't even lead his own family. Why in the world would he ever imagine that he could be some kind of great leader someday? No, God had to do the inception thing, and he had to plant the dream within the dreamer, but also give him the ability to interpret those dreams, to see them with his eyes wide open. If any of us feel like dreaming isn't for us, it's not true. Dreams come from God. And God will give us a dream, sometimes a calling. Now you guys know we're a church that doesn't shy away from telling anyone, if you can see yourself serving in ministry, maybe even planning a church, God could be calling you. That's one of the dreams God gives. He gives a calling, a direct assignment to go and do something. For some of us others, God will collaborate with you. Yeah, God will partner with you. As you think about your life, he knows your fears, your faith, your frustration, your future, and he'll work with all that. And he'll work with your likes and your dislikes and your desires, and he'll come up with the dream that's right for you. Now, why? What does it matter if we have this little dream or not? Because God won't give us a dream just so we can have this cute little dream of our own, like this little Lego set that we built and brag about it. No, that's not why God gives us a dream. Dreams come from God because dreams lead us to God. The pursuit of your dream is a path. And it's a path where God longs to meet with you and walk with you and teach you his ways, his heart, his character, because on the path to your dream, no matter what it is, there will be challenges and trials that you can only overcome by learning and adopting the heart and the character of God. Dreams lead us to God. Joseph didn't think that his dream was going to lead him into slavery, but that's where he ends up when his brothers sell him into slavery. Let's check in, though. Let's check in and see how he's doing at his new job that he didn't necessarily sign up for. In chapter 39, verses 1 through 5, it says, "Now Joseph had been taken to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian, who was one of Pharaoh's officials," you guys, that is not a coincidence. God will meet you on the path to your dream. That's not a coincidence who he goes to work for. One of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, he brought from the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. The Lord, listen, the Lord was with Joseph. God will be with you on the path to your dream. That's where he desires to meet you. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered. And he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything that he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes, and he became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything that he owned. Joseph had the combination to the safe, you guys. That's favor. From the time he put him in charge of his household and all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. There's several times in here that it says that the Lord was with Joseph. And that means that it was evident that Joseph was after God's character. He was after God's heart. He wanted to live God's ways. And because of that, it gave him progress. It gave him success in everything that he did. See, God knew that Joseph was going to lead. He knew Joseph's dream. And so he needed to prepare him. And so he first needed to teach him some very important characteristics of God. And one of them was serving. Some of you, when I started this message, you perked up. Maybe you're like me and you love your dream or you love thinking about dreams. But again, some of you, maybe you just feel lost in this and have no idea where to begin. A dream sounds great, Spence, but where do I begin? You could begin like Joseph did. God wanted Joseph to begin by serving all of us in this world. Whether it's a dream or some other means, we're searching. We're looking for our wholeness, our happiness, and our helpfulness on this planet. We just want to know that our heartbeat will register on the Richter scale of the universe. We want to be on God's radar. And when we search for a dream, that's one of the things we're searching for. And if you don't know where to begin, it can be frustrating and debilitating and paralyzing. There was a teacher who, she collaborated with the entire school. She went to the other teachers and she got enough balloons and markers, and every kid in the school blew up a balloon and wrote their name on it. She had them all come out of the classrooms and line the entire hallway of the school, all the kids. When she said go, they got to have a frenzy, hitting the balloons, doing that thing where you rub it on your head and see if it'll stick, just kicking them around, just making them fly everywhere. She told them to stop, and she waited till they all settled. And she said, now find your balloon. Every kid had their name on their balloon. Find the right color and the right name, find your balloon. She gave them a time limit. When they got to the time limit, about a handful of kids was able to find their balloon. And she said, let's try this again. Everybody put the balloons down. She said, now pick up the one closest to you. When the kids picked up the balloon, she said, now go find who it belongs to. And within moments, every kid had their balloon. You want to know where to start to find your dream? Serve someone else's. When we get around someone who's a dreamer, dreaming is contagious. And when we're willing to serve and see a dream in someone else and come alongside of it and be willing to serve, somehow ours could end up in our hands. God has a way when you're serving someone else's dream of saying, did you know you were good at that? I did. Did you ever see that for yourself? I did. And you can find it by serving someone else. As God knew that he was going to need the character of serving to be a genuine leader. For Pharrell, he had to do the same thing. He had dreamed of being the one on the microphone, being the star, being the musician. But to get his foot in the door in the industry, he had to serve everybody else. He had to write songs for everyone else. He had to produce records for everyone else. He had to serve his way first in order to get to his dream. God knew that Joseph, as a leader, was going to need his godly integrity. And so once again in his journey, God is with Joseph on his journey to his dream, even when things go from bad, a slave, to worse. Potiphar wasn't the only one who took notice of Joseph. Potiphar's wife took notice of Joseph. And so day by day, she's on Instagram posting thirsty pics and tagging Joseph. And to the point where she starts making advances at him. But Joseph wants his integrity, God's integrity. And so when his wife comes to Joseph talking about drop it like it's hot, he says, stop it, I think not. And when he does, she gets in her feelings, cooks up a lie, and throws him in jail. Joseph had to be just seeing his dream slip further and further away. From slave to prisoner. But what Joseph knew as he went after the heart of God, because that's what happens when you're on pursuit of your dream, is you have to go after the heart of God. He's building you into the person who can get there and be equipped to handle it, to live it out. Joseph was on the pathway of learning God's integrity, and he knew along the way, yeah, I may be farther away from my dream, but Joseph knew there was no prison more dark and lonely than losing himself for instant gratification, for settling. Maybe this is as far as my dream goes. I'll just settle here. Nah, he knew there was no prison more dark and lonely than losing yourself. Unfortunately, Pharrell, he knew what that pain was too. Because he did know the pain of being imprisoned, of losing yourself along the way. Let's take a look at what happened. What good is it? What good is it if we reach a dream only to have traded who we are in the process? Nah. That's not why God gives us a dream. God gives us a dream so that on that path we will find him, and by doing so, find ourselves. Especially when the path to that dream becomes more difficult, when you go from slave to prisoner, when things go from bad to worse, it kind of makes you wonder when you look at Joseph's story, why would God allow this to him? Why would God allow him to become a slave and to become a prisoner, and all along knowing Joseph's keeping his dream out in front of him? Why would he allow that? Because God knows. God knows that dreams can start from passion, but they will last through perseverance. Joseph had to persevere. He had to fight and believe no matter what that God was more than able to still make this dream happen if it was from him. God was aligning all the pieces. This is the part that Joseph couldn't do. Joseph could serve, he could grow in God's integrity, he could work hard, he could do well in the places that he was, because he did. Even when he goes into prison, he finds favor in the eyes of the warden. The warden treats him a lot like how Potiphar did, giving him position and a role while he's in jail. And while Joseph's in jail, he gets visited by some prisoners who get thrown in. They're two of Pharaoh's servants, the cupbearer and the baker. The cupbearer was the one who would take a drink first before Pharaoh would, in case somebody was trying to kill him. They would have to die. I can probably understand why that guy got thrown into jail, but I had a hard time understanding how the baker ended up in jail. I did until my son, my oldest son, got his first job at Crumpy's Donuts. And he would always bring his donuts home, and he knew which one I wanted. I wanted vanilla cream, not the yellow stuff, the vanilla. And he brought me home a donut, and when I bit into it, it was that Boston cream custard stuff. And then I understood how the baker got thrown in jail. But anyway, when they're in jail, they have dreams. And remember, Joseph is able to interpret dreams. And so he helps them understand their dreams. When one of them gets to go back into the service of Pharaoh, it's not too much longer, like 2 years later, Pharaoh has a dream, and he needs somebody to help interpret it. And that's when this guy remembers Joseph's LinkedIn profile that he took down before he left as a dream interpreter. And now Pharaoh sends for Joseph and brings him out of jail. When he presents his skills to Pharaoh, and he not only helps him interpret his dream, but come up with a plan to help save all of Egypt when there's a famine coming. Finally, instead of things going from bad to worse, things are about to go from good to great, from dream to destiny. And Pharaoh promotes Joseph. Look at what happens in chapter 41, verses 41 through 43 says, "So Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt." He was just in jail, y'all. Like an overnight success, years long, right? He said, "I'll put you in charge over the whole land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger. He put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen. He put a gold chain all on his neck. He had him ride in the chariot as second in command, doing the parade wave. And the people shouted before him, "Make way." Thus, he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Nightmare after nightmare after nightmare turned dream. That all had to happen so fast. I can't imagine that Joseph's riding in that chariot, and he just had to be like so, what's the word I'm looking for? So happy. The same happy that I'm sure Pharrell experienced when he came back to himself, started making music again from his heart. Let's watch one more clip. In an interview, one of the, I'm sure, thousands of interviews that Pharrell had about the song Happy, he said that phenomenon of how big that song blew up around the world made him realize just how insignificant he was in the grand scheme of things. And watch this. It made him realize how he was not in control of his success. I love that. We watched Joseph serve, grow, chase after the heart of God, learn skills, policies, procedures, leadership, all that. We watched him cry and struggle and believe and see setbacks and work hard, and still, After doing all that, it reached a point where there was nothing he could do. Only God could have a line that Pharaoh would have a dream, that the servants before him would have a dream, end up in the same jail as Joseph. Only God could have done that, guys. And it's because God gives us dreams, dreams lead us to God, and dreams happen through God. I hope you feel like dreaming today. I hope if you have one, that it became even more vivid to you. I hope if you were one of the people who has felt like it's not for you, that God told you something different today. And when you have it or when you pursue it, you need to know it's a bumpy road to go after a dream, to go back to school, to start a business, to try ministry, to get clean, or to be sober, to raise a family, to be a foster family. It is a lot of work to pursue a dream. It takes tears and fears. It takes rain and pain. Yeah, there's sunshine along the way, but there's hard work. There's early mornings and late nights. There's stress and disbelief. And you'll do all of that, and you will still come to a place where there's nothing you can do more to make it happen. And that's when the God who loves you and believes in your dreams steps in and makes it happen. Did you ever wonder why? Why would God care about our tiny little Lego piece in the grand scheme of things? Why would he want to make our dream happen? Don't forget, God is the dreamer of dreamers. All of this, life itself, is a dream come true. It was God's dream. I mentioned earlier that to find our dream, a good way to start is to serve somebody else's. We all have to serve God's dream before we can believe in any other, or before God is going to be able to believe in ours. Because serving God's dream is believing that God's dream was to live in harmony with the mankind he created in this world. And for a while, we were doing it. It was good. We were singing happy together with God until the Lego set got knocked off the table and scattered everywhere. When man, instead of choosing God's character, chose our own desire. And that's called sin. The opposite direction of God's heart and desire is sin. And sin contaminated our world. It imprisoned us like Joseph. But like Joseph, God kept his dream in mind. His dream for you and me to still be in relationship with him in life now and forever. And so God's willing to pay the cost of his own son, Jesus. Jesus has one purpose: to come and live in this life. It's to not only live for us, but to die for us. Jesus' perfect death on a cross would forgive us of all of that sin. And when we put our faith in believing that Jesus did that, not only that, but just like God springing Joseph out of jail, he pulls Jesus out of the grave, back to life. And when we believe that, we're now serving God's dream by surrendering our heart to Jesus. It's my pleasure and privilege to invite you to believe in Jesus today. You are God's dream, and you can make it a reality. Do you believe that? Do you believe that Jesus gave his life for you? Do you believe that God raised him from the dead? That he lives with God now for eternity, and he has a plan to unfold throughout history, and to get involved now is the wisest you can do for your life and your dream and for your eternity. If you want to believe in Jesus today, all he needs is your yes. Yes, Jesus, I believe. And please, if you say yes, Pastor Nelson is sitting on the edge of his seat, waiting for you to scan the QR that's going to come up on the screen so that he can follow up with you this week. Say, welcome to the family of God. Welcome to God's dream. God is the ultimate dreamer. And it's why he longs to meet with us on the course to our dreams. We're going to finish and we're going to close now, and we're going to sing a song together. And it's so appropriate because if you remember in the movie, there was little Lego Oprah. And she said to Pharrell, I bet your grandmother, who believed in you and saw a vision for you, I bet she didn't even imagine all of this. And she's right. We can't imagine. Now, even though he's no Lego or Oprah, the Apostle Paul said something similar to us in Ephesians when he says that it's to him. It's to God. Dreams happen through God. It is to he who's able to do more, abundantly more than we can ever think or imagine. God can do more with your dream than you can ever dream or imagine. And so as we close, I'm going to invite the prayer team. They're going to be at the back of the room. Have you prayed about your dream? Have you talked to God about it? Do you know why Joseph could interpret dreams? Because he was looking at them through God's eyes. Have you looked at your dream through God's eyes? Have you gone to God and said, God, what am I doing with all this? Is it yours? Is it from you? Are we doing this? I don't want it without you. Have you done that? I'll tell you, personal testimony. I'm a campus pastor here at Lifehouse. I get to do some really important things for the church and some really awesome things like being with you, Chambersburg campus today. And I didn't exactly imagine this. But I can really only recall one time I got out of my seat at the Leitersburg Cinemas to go pray with the prayer team. And when I did, it was to pray about my dream. Just saying. God is more than able to do greater things than you can dream for your life. Why don't you let him by surrendering that dream to him, believing in it like he believes in you? As we sing More Than Able, would you make it your prayer? Would you make it your surrender? That the God of dreams wants to meet with you. Meet with him on the path to your dream. Let's sing. God, you're more than able. Make it happen.